Hello and welcome to an interview in history. This interview takes place in August of 1799. Our guest was an American founding father, military officer, and politician who served as the first president of the United States from 1789 to 1797, George Washington. Appointed by the Second Continental Congress as commander of the Continental Army in 1775, Washington led Patriot forces to victory in the American Revolutionary War and then served as president of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, which drafted the current Constitution of the United States. Washington has thus become commonly known as the father of his country. General Washington, thank you for joining us today. Let's start from the beginning. Could you tell us a bit about your childhood and early family life?
Thank you for having me. I was born on February 22nd, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. My family owned a modest plantation. My father, Augustine Washington, passed away when I was just 11 years old, and my older half-brother, Lawrence, became a significant influence in my life. We didn't have much formal education, but I learned a great deal about agriculture and surveying, which served me well later on.
How did your relationship with your half-brother Lawrence shape your early life?
Lawrence was like a father to me. He was a man of honor and distinction, having served in the British Navy. After his service, he managed the family estate, Mount Vernon, which I eventually inherited. Lawrence's military background and his connections with prominent Virginians exposed me to ideas and people that would shape my future. His early death in 1752 was a heavy blow, but it also thrust me into responsibilities that would prepare me for leadership.
Your early experiences as a surveyor and your involvement in the French and Indian War were crucial to your development. How did these experiences prepare you for your future role?
Surveying taught me of discipline and the value of precision, while my service in the French and Indian War exposed me to the realities of military command. At the age of 21, I was sent to deliver a message to the French in the Ohio Valley, a mission that led me to my first taste of battle. These experiences were challenging, but they taught me the importance of resilience, strategy, and responsibility that comes with leadership.
Let's talk about the Revolutionary War. What motivated you to take up the cause against Britain, and how did you see your role in the struggle?
The decision to take up arms against Britain was not one I made lightly. For years, we colonists had been loyal subjects of the Crown, but the increasingly oppressive measures, taxation without representation, the quartering of troops, and the disregard of our rights, left us with little choice. When I was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, I knew the task ahead was daunting. Our forces were outmatched in almost every way, but I believed in the justice of our cause and the determination of the American people.
The winter at Valley Forge was particularly brutal. How did you keep your troops motivated during such a difficult time?
Valley Forge was indeed one of the most trying times of the war. The cold, the lack of supplies, and the constant threat of disease weighed heavily on all of us. But I knew that morale was as crucial as military strategy. So I worked to instill a sense of purpose and unity in the men, emphasizing that we were fighting for our homes, our families, and our future as a free nation. The arrival of Baron von Steuben, who trained the troops, was also instrumental in transforming our ragtag army into a disciplined force.
Now let's talk about your personal life for a moment. How did you meet your wife, Martha, and what drew you to her?
I first met Martha in March of 1758 at a mutual friend's home. She was a widow at the time, with 2 young children, and I was immediately struck by her grace, intelligence, and warmth. We shared many of the same values: family, faith, and a deep sense of duty to others. It wasn't long before I knew she was someone with whom I wanted to share my life. You married Martha Custis in January 1759. How did your marriage shape your life, both personally and professionally? Marrying Martha was one of the best decisions of my life. She brought a sense of stability and comfort to my world. Her support was invaluable, especially during the many years I spent away from home during the Revolutionary War. Martha was a capable manager of our household and our estates, which allowed me to focus on my military and political duties without worrying about the home front. Our marriage was also a partnership in every sense. Martha was deeply involved in the operations of our estate at Mount Vernon, and a prudent management of her own wealth at the death of her first husband provided us with financial security. We were true partners in every aspect of life. Can you tell us about your life at Mount Vernon and what family life was like there? Mount Vernon was my sanctuary, the place where I found peace and respite from the demands of public life. Family was central to our lives there. Martha's children from her first marriage, John Parke Custis and Martha Parke Custis, whom we called Jackie and Patsy, were like my own. Sadly, Patsy died young from a seizure, which was a terrible blow to both of us. We also took in many relatives and wards over the years, and our home was always full of activity. I enjoyed the quiet pleasures of farming and managing the estate, but the moments I cherished most were those spent with family, whether it was a quiet dinner, a walk around the grounds, or simply sitting by the fire together. You and Martha did not have children of your own. How did that impact your lives, and how did you find fulfillment in your role as a father figure? It is true that Martha and I did not have children together, though I loved her children, Jackie and Patsy, as if they were my own. The loss of Patsy at such a young age was particularly painful, and it left a void that was difficult to fill. After Jackie's death during the Revolutionary War, we raised 2 of his children, Eleanor and George Washington Parke Custis, whom we affectionately called Nellie and Washi. They became our wards, and we took great joy in watching them grow up at Mount Vernon. I found fulfillment in guiding them and preparing them for their future roles in life. My love for them was no less than it would have been for my own children. Martha was known to be deeply devoted to you, even joining you at winter encampments during the Revolutionary War. How did her presence and support affect you during those trying times? Martha's presence during the war was a source of great comfort and strength, and yes, she would join me at the winter encampments, enduring the harsh conditions alongside the troops. Her presence was not just a comfort to me, but to the soldiers as well. She was a steadying influence, organizing care for the troops, boosting morale, and maintaining a sense of home and normalcy amid the chaos of war. Martha's strength and resilience were truly remarkable. Her ability to maintain her composure and offer unwavering support during some of the darkest days of the war was invaluable. I could not have asked for a better companion. How did you and Martha navigate the transition from public life back to private life after your presidency? The transition back to private life was one we both looked forward to with great anticipation. After so many years of public service, returning to Mount Vernon was a dream. We were eager to spend our days in peace, tending to the estate, entertaining friends, and enjoying the simpler pleasures of life. Martha and I were united in our desire for privacy and the quiet life, although we continued to host a steady stream of visitors in Mount Vernon. We were content to be away from the political fray, focusing instead on our family and our home. It was a time of reflection and renewal to both of us. Final question about your personal life. How do you describe your marriage to Martha and the role it played in your life? My marriage to Martha was the foundation of my life. She was my confidant, my partner, and my greatest support. Our relationship was built on mutual respect, love, and a shared commitment to our family and country. The strength of our bond allowed me to face the many challenges that came my way with confidence, knowing that I had her unwavering support. I would not have been able to accomplish what I did without her by my side. Okay, now let's get back to your political life. After the war, you were unanimously elected as the first president of the United States. What were your initial thoughts upon taking office? I was deeply honored, but also apprehensive. The task of leading a newly formed nation was overwhelming. We were navigating uncharted waters. There was no precedent, no guidebook of how to govern a republic of our size and diversity. My primary goal was to ensure that a new government would function effectively and that the principles of the Constitution would take root. I believed that my duty was to set a precedent of integrity, impartiality, and respect for the laws of the land. You chose not to seek a third term, which set an important precedent. What led to that decision? After serving 2 terms, I felt it was important to step aside and allow others to lead. I believed in the principles of a republican government where no single individual holds too much power for too long. It was essential to demonstrate that the presidency was not a lifetime appointment and that the peaceful transfer of power was a cornerstone of our democracy. I wanted to retire to private life at Mount Vernon, knowing that I had done my part in securing the nation's future. Looking back, what do you consider your greatest achievement as president? If I had to choose, I would say maintaining neutrality during the conflicts between Britain and France was one of the most crucial decisions I made. It kept our young nation out of unnecessary wars and allowed us to focus on building our own strength and stability. Establishing a stable financial system with the help of Alexander Hamilton was also vital, as it laid the groundwork for our economic growth. What have you been doing in your retirement? Well, of course, I have returned to my beloved estate Mount Vernon. I was eager to enjoy the peace and tranquility of private life after years of public service. I've spent my retirement years managing the estate, which had fallen into some disrepair during my years away. I'm also deeply involved in agricultural innovations, and I've continued to experiment with new crops and farming techniques. Have you kept track of what's going on politically? I've kept a close watch on the country's political developments and have often been consulted by political leaders for my advice. However, I'm careful not to involve myself too deeply in political matters, wanting to ensure that the new nation would not become overly reliant on any one individual. In closing, what advice would you give to future generations of Americans? I would advise them to cherish and protect the liberties that were so hard won. It's easy to take freedom for granted, but it requires constant vigilance. Unity, respect for the Constitution, and the commitment to the common good are essential to the survival of our republic. Remember that your actions today will shape the nation for generations to come.
Thank you, General Washington, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. Your contributions to our nation are immeasurable, and your legacy continues to inspire. Thank you. It's been my honor to serve, and I trust that the American people will continue to uphold the principles of liberty and justice. On December 12, 1799, Washington was caught in a rainstorm while inspecting his plantation on horseback. He returned home, chilled and soaked, but went about his usual activities. The following day, he developed a sore throat and respiration difficulties. His condition worsened rapidly, and by the evening of December 14th, it was clear that he was gravely ill. Despite the efforts of his physicians, who employed the standard medical practices of the day, including bloodletting, Washington's condition continued to decline. He died peacefully at Mount Vernon on December 14, 1799, at the age of 67. Washington's death was a profound moment for the nation. He was mourned across the country, with people from all walks of life expressing their grief. His passing marked the end of an era, and his legacy as the father of his country was solidified. In his will, Washington made provisions for the emancipation of his enslaved workers upon the death of his wife, Martha. This was a reflection of his evolving views on slavery, a practice that he had become increasingly uneasy about in his later years. Washington was buried at Mount Vernon in a tomb overlooking the Potomac River. His funeral was a simple affair, in accordance with his wishes, but the impact of his life and leadership continues to resonate in the United States to this day. His legacy is not only that of a military leader and a president, but also of a man who put the nation's interests above his own, even in retirement and death. And now, here's this week's Forgotten History. Aunt Sal Creech, a prominent figure from Harlan County, Kentucky. Her legacy is deeply entwined with the Pine Mountain Settlement School, an institution she co-founded in 1913, alongside her husband, William Creech. The Pine Mountain Settlement School was established to provide education and support to the rural Appalachian community. Its aim was to offer not only academic education, but also vocational training, community development, and cultural preservation. The school's mission was to address the educational needs and improve the quality of life for the people of the region, reflecting Aunt Sal Creech's dedication to her community. The school has been recognized for its commitment to progressive education and its role in the cultural and educational advancement of the Appalachian region. Aunt Sal Creech's contributions through the Pine Mountain Settlement School have left a lasting impact on the area, demonstrating her dedication to education and community service. She represents a significant era in Appalachian history, showcasing her role as a pioneer in educational reform and community development in the early 20th century. Join us next week as we talk with Sigmund Freud. He was the founder of psychoanalysis. Until then, take care.